If you think January is a dead month for cinema, let me shatter that illusion right now. In the quiet after the fireworks, while Europe exhales and the streets grow colder, movie screens ignite with some of the bravest, rawest stories of the year. I want to take you by the hand and walk you through January in Europe, not as a calendar, but as a living, breathing journey, because January cinema is not about red carpets and champagne. It is about truth, discovery, and that intimate moment when the lights go down and you feel less alone. And yes, the most interesting part is waiting for you at the very end. I have spent years working with global companies, traveling between countries, coaching women through change and uncertainty. What I see now everywhere I go is how hungry we are for meaning. January cinema in Europe answers that hunger. If this resonates with you, stay with me, support this space, and keep watching because the final stop on this journey is unforgettable. January begins in the Netherlands with one of the most respected and daring film gatherings on the continent, International Film Festival Rotterdam. Usually running from late January into early February, Rotterdam transforms the city into a laboratory of ideas. This is where first-time directors stand shoulder to shoulder with established auteurs, where experimental cinema is not a side note but the main event. Screenings take place across the city, from the iconic De Dolen complex to smaller art house cinemas. A standard ticket costs $12 to $15, while festival passes range from $60 to $120, depending on access. Rotterdam in January is cold and windy, but inside those cinemas, something warm and electric happens. You feel it when a risky film gets silence instead of applause, then explodes into conversation in the foyer. This festival is not here to comfort you, it is here to wake you up. And just when you think that intensity might be too much, Europe takes you north. In Sweden, the Gothenburg Film Festival opens in late January, becoming the largest film festival in Scandinavia. There is something almost poetic about watching films in Gothenburg while snow falls outside and daylight disappears early in the afternoon. The city feels introspective, and so does the program. Tickets here are refreshingly accessible. Single screenings usually cost around 120 to 150 SEK, roughly $11 to $14, and festival passes start at about $90. Gothenburg is famous for its focus on Nordic cinema, but the international selection is equally strong. This is a festival that understands silence, long pauses, and emotional restraint. Films here do not scream, they whisper, and somehow that whisper stays with you longer. If you have ever felt that winter makes emotions sharper, Gothenburg will feel like it was created for you. Now let me take you even further north, to a place where cinema meets the Arctic night. Tromsø International Film Festival takes place in mid-January in Norway, above the Arctic Circle. Yes, you heard that right. Films are screened while the sun does not rise at all. Tromsø is not glamorous, and that is exactly its power. Tickets usually cost around NOK 100 to 130, roughly $9 to $12. Screenings happen in modern cinemas and even unconventional spaces. Walking out into polar darkness after an intense documentary or a poetic drama is an experience that borders on spiritual. You become hyper-aware of your own thoughts, your breath, your place in the world. This festival has a strong focus on documentaries, human rights, and stories from the global north and indigenous communities. It reminds you that cinema is not just entertainment, it is testimony, but Europe is not finished with you yet. Let us move south to Italy, where January carries a very different emotional temperature. In mid-January, the Trieste Film Festival opens its doors near the Slovenian border. Trieste has always been a crossroads, culturally and historically, and this festival reflects that perfectly. The focus here is on Central and Eastern European cinema, films that speak of identity, transition, memory, and survival. Ticket prices are usually modest, around $6 to $10 per screening, making it one of the most accessible festivals on this list. Trieste in winter is moody, windy, and beautiful. You can walk from a screening straight to a cafe, sip a strong espresso, and realize that the story you just watched mirrors conversations happening across Europe right now. This festival does not chase trends. It preserves voices that might otherwise be lost. And if you are still with me, this is where things start to get truly special. In France, January belongs to emerging talent. The Premier Plan d'Angers, held in late January, is entirely dedicated to first films and debut directors. Angers may not be Paris, but during this festival, it becomes a beating heart of future cinema. Tickets usually range from $4 to $7, with very affordable passes for students and young audiences. The atmosphere is intimate, almost protective. You feel the nervous energy of directors watching their first feature on a big screen, often sitting just a few rows away from you. There is something profoundly emotional about witnessing beginnings. You sense that some of these names will return years later to Cannes, Venice, Berlin, and you will remember that you were there at the start. But Germany has its own powerful statement to make in January. In Germany, Max Ophüls Prize takes place in late January in Saarbrücken. This festival is a cornerstone for young German language cinema from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Ticket prices are usually around $7 to $10, with passes available at reasonable rates. The films often deal with identity, social pressure, mental health, and generational conflict. They are bold, sometimes uncomfortable, and deeply honest. What strikes me every time is the audience young, engaged, unafraid to ask difficult questions. This is not passive viewing, this is dialogue. And in January, when the world feels uncertain, that dialogue matters more than ever. If you think January is slowing down, wait for what comes next. Back in the Netherlands, smaller cities and cinematheques run themed retrospectives throughout January. While not always labeled as festivals, these curated programs deserve attention. Tickets usually cost $8 to $12, and the focus might be on a single director, a political theme, or a national cinema rarely shown elsewhere. These events remind us that cinema history is not static, it is constantly reinterpreted. January is the month when institutions take risks, when they trust the audience to engage deeply rather than casually. And now, let me pause for a moment and ask you something. When was the last time a film truly changed how you see the world? Because the final stop on this journey is designed to do exactly that. We end this journey in a place that feels almost symbolic for January itself, reflective, thoughtful, and quietly radical. In Belgium, January often features strong documentary and human rights focused film events across Brussels and other cities, frequently tied to European institutions and cultural centers. Ticket prices range from free screenings to $10, depending on venue and sponsorship. These events may not always carry a single famous name, but their impact is profound. Films here engage directly with European identity, migration, climate anxiety, and social justice. Audiences include students, diplomats, artists, and ordinary citizens sitting side by side. Walking out of these screenings, you do not feel entertained, you feel informed, unsettled, and empowered. And maybe that is exactly what January cinema in Europe is meant to do. So let me leave you with this. January is not a waiting room for the year to begin. It is where the year reveals its soul. Through screens flickering in cold cities, through stories told bravely before the crowds arrive, Europe reminds us why cinema still matters. If this journey moved you, stay connected, support thoughtful cinema, and keep watching, because the stories that shape us rarely arrive with fireworks. They arrive quietly in January when we are finally ready to listen.